Good evening. Welcome to the New York Studio School's 2020 benefit, the first virtual gala. I am Graham Nixon, the Dean, and I will be taking you on a short journey through our school. Tonight we celebrate 3 distinguished honorees, giants in their field, whom we consider paradigms for our students. Alisa, Ursula, and Michael, we salute you. For the school, it is a great achievement when one of our students sees the shapes between things for the first time. It not only shapes their work, it shapes their lives. We urge them to think with their eyes. Our students love the stuff of art, the pigments, the colours, the charcoal, the brushes, the clay. These ingredients give permission to form the imagination and shape the vision of the artist. When we enter the lobby, we are walking into both the past and the present. Once the lobby of the original Whitney Museum of American Art, its visitors would enter the space and encounter Attic, a seminal painting by Willem de Kooning, one of the great subliminal memories of the building. De Kooning, along with other distinguished artists, signed the charter that founded the school. Launched in 1964 by Mercedes Matter and a group of young artists dedicated to the education of painters and sculptors, the studio school was greeted with enthusiasm by both students and the art world. Today's visitors will encounter the palpable vitality and sense of ambition for the work of the students, which is everywhere. Our students transform the eccentric room structures of the building into their own personal spaces. We now encompass most disciplines, offering virtual programs as well as in-person classes. Drawing for us is still the most direct way of describing ideas and experiences. To disseminate this crucial information, we invented the drawing marathon, an intensive 2-week course equivalent to a semester of teaching. Students from all over the country and the world come explicitly to explore the questions and to seek the adventure of these marathons. As we travel through the building, we see the connections between the ancient and the modern. Pompeii to paradise, Nazca lines to Signorelli's hell, formal plasticity as well as the plastic-engorged oceans are all fuel for the imagination. This course is a crucial element for our students. It leads to the essential realization that all works are self-portraits, and all works are metaphoric. The window is just a window, but there is also the framework of life, the structure of art, and the geometry of surprise. Our students are the image makers of today. The next voice in our program is a legend, Philippe de Montebello. Philippe will introduce Alisa LaGamma.
It is with enormous pleasure and pride that I introduce Alisa LaGamma, my former colleague and my teacher where it comes to the arts of Africa, Oceania, and the Americas, the vast field of which she is in charge and about which, as a Europeanist, I had everything to learn. I hope in these few words to be able to do justice to the person beyond the scholar, the connoisseur, and the humanist that is Alisa. After earning her Ph.D. at Columbia University, her career is all at the Metropolitan Museum, and her rise through the ranks from curator of African art to head of the department has been meteoric, and I hope she'll forgive me if in this format I skip a recitation of the innumerable awards, publications, and exhibitions that fill her remarkable CV. It is by virtue of both the originality and scholarly rigor of her publications, her landmark exhibitions, her outstanding acquisitions, and not least, her fervent advocacy for the field, that Alisa can be said not only to have taken full possession of it conceptually, but to have lifted it to a new level. And now, as we live a turning point in our national social consciousness, Alisa has been in the vanguard in responding, even anticipating the need for change, for new interpretations, new narratives, in short, for the redefinition of the field. And dare I say, knowing of her plan for the upcoming reinstallation of the collection, literally reinventing the field. What she is proposing is to unbundle the vestigial ethnographic bunching of sub-Saharan Africa, the ancient Americas, and Oceania, and treat these three world traditions as what they really are, wholly independent entities, each hugely diverse, each with many histories and narratives. Such creative thinking we have come to expect from Alisa. She is in fact a real pioneer, and it was more than 20 years ago that she mounted the groundbreaking exhibition on the Yoruba, where she actually identified artists by name, a near revolutionary notion at the time, one that refutes what is, let's say it, a colonialist practice, that of making generic attributions to entire ethnic groups, not to individual artists. Alisa can also be forward-looking, and it is she, not the curator of contemporary art, who acquired the Met's first work by the major Ghanaian artist El Anatsui, and I'm sure she took great delight in seeing the modern art department just a year later scramble to catch up to buy one for their own galleries. And let me end telling you of a major coup of Alisa's in my last year as director in 2008, her acquisition of a great mangaka power figure from the Congo, the most expensive work of African art the Met had ever been asked to consider. No matter how convinced she was that this would be a transformative acquisition, I am sure that it was still with some trepidation, but not diffidence, that she came to see her director with a photograph and a seven-figure price. I'll admit, I gave her a hard time, a very hard time, but she won the day with what are among her most distinctive qualities: impeccable scholarship, clarity of thought and expression, and with this, real passion, resolve, and determination. The mangaka is now one of the highlights of the sub-Saharan African galleries and the most notable acquisition of my last year as director. So thank you, Alisa, and congratulations on your award from the New York Studio School.
Thank you, Philippe, for that introduction. It's fitting that the person I learned the most from in my professional life has also been recognized at this event that is all about the transformational role of inspired teaching in the arts. I'm speaking to you today from an exhibition that reopened following the Metropolitan Museum of Art's previously unimaginable 6-month closure. The authors of the work it assembled lived in a region of Africa known as the Sahel, a liminal zone that follows the southern edge of the world's largest desert, the Sahara. The men and women who gave shape to these creations lived in now legendary states that flourished and succeeded one another in a fragile ecology between the 6th and 19th centuries. Although the Sahel was once a global crossroads, the few material traces of its inhabitants' lives that endure constitute our only direct point of connection with their deepest desires, ambitions, and fears. Among the regional visual traditions developed, the one that has universally captured the attention of contemporary artists, curators, critics, and other visitors to the exhibition are the figures modeled and fired from local clay between the 12th and 15th centuries in present-day central Mali. In the absence of written commentaries by its citizenry, we rely on the interpretations of archaeologists for all that is known about the major urban settlement associated with their production. careful sifting through its many layered foundations has revealed that for well over a millennium, from its 3rd century BC settlement to its sudden unexplained abandonment circa 1300, this was a prosperous city of specialized professionals and traders. The deeply introspective, kneeling members of its society, depicted for the ages in fired clay, represent a creative explosion during its final centuries. It has been proposed they were produced as appeals for protection and divine intervention in response to a pandemic that arrived from without in the form of either the bubonic plague or smallpox. It remains astonishing to consider that in our own time, a global pandemic has wrought unprecedented change that has left no form of life on our planet untouched. Our collective experiences of 2020 is a heightened consciousness of human vulnerability. In the realm of culture, we've been frequently reminded of the fact that such epic change during the Middle Ages and Elizabethan era paved the way for the brilliant breakthroughs of the Italian Renaissance and Shakespeare's King Lear, Macbeth, Antony and Cleopatra, as well as the Bard's greatest narrative poems. Transformation that takes us from the present crisis of COVID and racial inequity to a better future is going to require immense imagination and creative ingenuity. In the midst of so much hardship, suffering, loss, and uncertainty, we have the opportunity to reconsider what once seemed immutable and strengthen those institutions that nurture the qualities of profound reflection and resilience within us. The great hope for New York City's future is its distinct identity as a nexus of cultural diversity and creative talent, as a center dedicated to fostering and challenging that potential. The New York Studio School's mission is firmly embedded in Manhattan's Precambrian crystalline bedrock. At this moment, when so much is being asked of all of us, its singular place in one of the most cosmopolitan centers in the history of humankind, now and in the future, has never been more necessary to our renewal. Dean Nixon, thank you for your inspired leadership of this cherished institution. It's a great privilege for all members of this community gathered this evening, faculty, MFA students, drawing marathoners, alumni, and essential supporters to respond to your remarkable New York Studio School vision and its promise to deliver the artistic breakthroughs of tomorrow. Thank you. This gold pectoral, which is the national treasure of Senegal. It's a rare example of the precious substance that actually made the Sahel a crossroads of the world. Traders came across the Sahara in search of gold. And we know that in the Middle Ages, 3/4 of the gold in circulation in Europe was mined in this region of sub-Saharan Africa. But we have very few examples of gold cast artifacts that were actually made for local consumption that survive from earlier periods in history. This is where we end the journey. He is the culmination of the exhibition. He's an equestrian warrior from the great Bamana civilization, the Empire of Segu. And this work was created around the 19th century, which is the end of the story that we're telling in this exhibition. Yeah, we've staggered these figures to represent different eras in the history of the Sahel, as if we're unpacking different layers of an excavation, traveling deeper into time at the beginning, walking towards the present at the culmination of the exhibition.
Good evening. My name is Kate Gans, and I have the singular pleasure of introducing the next honoree, Michael Rubenstein. Michael served for many years on the board of the New York Studio School, and his long-term involvement in all aspects of promoting and supporting the school is part of why he's being recognized tonight. Michael is also being honored for his deep commitment to drawings and the way in which he has chosen to share his collection with all of us. Michael and his late wife, Juliet Van Vliet, began collecting drawings together after their marriage in 1967. Michael, in the words of Jonathan Goodman, had been a hunter and gatherer of excellent works of art for more than 20 years before that date. Last spring, in an extraordinary gesture of generosity, Michael gave more than 160 works from his collection of drawings, paintings, and sculpture as promised gifts to the Met. 1/3 of the gifts were shown last February at the Met Breuer for just a few weeks before COVID shut the museum down. It was a revelation. Like all great collectors, Michael and Julia used their instinct and their visual and emotional responses to each piece to guide them. They used their eyes rather than their ears, and their choices were never considered for their investment potential. Michael has emphasized that his collection was chosen without any expert advice, and neither he nor Juliet had any formal art education. The Rubinsteins were limited in what they could afford to purchase. Instead of de Kooning drawings, which they knew and coveted, they bought stunning drawings by Gustin. Instead of Picasso, they bought superb drawings by Julio Gonzalez. Instead of clay, for example, they bought enchanting collages by Anne Ryan. In date, the drawings collection ranges from a sheet by Géricault after Michelangelo to a ravishing mixed media work by Dorothea Rockburn. From 1819 to 2019, a spread of 200 years. Some of the most beautiful examples of great draftsmanship, in addition to these two, are Pissarro, Vuillard, Morandi, Giacometti, Diebenkorn, and Matisse. Work by Rubinstein's contemporaries, many of whom became close friends, are also represented in the Met donation. What, I have been wondering, binds this collection of so many different artists, periods, styles, and media together in some way? I see a thread of tenderness, a sense that on nearly every sheet, the scene depicted shows its own small, self-contained world, serene and complete. Even the more abstract works don't pierce or slash, but vibrate with a positive, gentle energy. I suspect this is to say as much about the man who collected them as it is about the art that he collected. The fact that these marvelous works will forever be at the Met as a gift is a gift to all of us, and also an acknowledgement of the extremely high caliber of the Rubinstein's taste. Michael, we thank you and we salute you.
So here we are in January of 1965, the first benefit of the New York Studio School in the Artist Loft where they were holding their first sessions, and I was lucky enough to win a door prize. I was taken there by painters David Lund and Sally Amster, and it was an interesting evening, but the door prize wound up to be an Esteban Vicente big charcoal drawing, which is, from our collection's point of view, the beginning of Abek's work entering into a burgeoning collection that had started quite innocently with lyrical abstraction of Americans. And Esteban's work was the beginning of a new direction for us, and a very pleasant one. That is 1965. In the 70s, I began to know a little bit about the school because of Billy O'Reilly, who had introduced me to Graham at some point. And in 1993, we lent a few drawings to one of Graham's curated shows, and went to the first benefit, which was really a benefit at the studio school. And we were taken around by a wonderful student called Becky Dolinsky, whom I still see, who lives in Paris. And we fell in love with the school. It was as simple as that. It was very easy for me to do that as an architect, and it was one of those situations where you've got 4 townhouses pulled together and spread apart and impossible to negotiate. And I had been to the Architectural Association for a year in London, which is exactly the same thing, only with 3 townhouses and lots of stairways and impossible to negotiate. So it was very easy for me to be captivated, and we were. 2 years later, I found myself on the board, and 5 years into that, was vice chairman of the board for 3 years. So my experience of the studio school has been a very, very long time. I did a marathon in the 90s at some point and was awful at it, except for 20 minutes where I was working, because Graham switched us to other people's drawings, and I had 20 minutes of total freedom working on my friend Alice's drawing. No more than that. But I learned how to see, and that for me was extraordinarily important. So here we are, having gone to lectures. Julie was wondering, my wife, where I was many evenings, because in the heyday there were 30 lectures a semester, and most of them were absolutely worth going to. So I spent a lot of time at the school, and still consider the lecture program one of the best things that the school offers to New York City, because they are of a level that no one else is doing, and they're free. There's an awful lot about the school that I still adore, and I'm very glad to be honored. Perhaps. So this is a wall that keeps changing. I don't know if it'd get any further. I think we've got no space left, but one of the earlier pics was Bill Jensen from, I think probably bought in 1982. It's an early piece of his, and it holds up remarkably against pretty much everything else on the wall. A Juan Gris that was bought a year ago in Paris, an Elmer Bischoff from 5 or 6 years ago. Arthur Dove's last painting, bought a very long time ago. We could just kind of swing around this whole area, perhaps. This is a room that's an example of a feeling that we had with more would be more. We've got 3 of the 10 Bonnards hanging here, and a Barret drawing from bought many years ago. Hold it. 3 Bonnard and a Pissarro on top, and a Mel Kendrick sculpture down below that was bought at one of the studio school benefits. But we could go into the bedroom. In addition to the more lyrical abstractions, there are mixed in with the collection a group of things that are much more geometric. An Ilya Bolitovsky and an Alice Trumbull Mason. They were both good friends. They both founded the American Artists Association many, many years ago. In connection, Esteban Vicente from 1952 and Diebenkorn from 1953, all against Dorothea Rockburn's 1980s vellum piece, and an Anne Ryan and a Burgoyne Diller. So to say that the collection is one thing and not another is proven by this wall, because it's both or either. And so on. I don't know what else we can do on this wall except take things down, but I think we've gone as far as we can go with it.
Good evening. My name is Brooke Kamen Rappaport, and I'm the Deputy Director and Martin Friedman Chief Curator of Madison Square Park Conservancy here in New York City. And I'm also one of the many members of the Ursula von Rydingsvard fan club. It is my great honor to congratulate the director, staff, and board of the New York Studio School on this occasion and to introduce Ursula. Many of us make pilgrimage to view Ursula's work. We take in the surface tactility, monumental scale, and agency, and see sculpture that walks the tightrope between abstraction and representation, history and narrative. We have viewed her work outdoors in Venice, at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and in Madison Square Park, on university campuses, and at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park in Northern England, on the terrace at SF MoMA, and in the sculpture garden at the Museum of Modern Art. We've seen Ursula's sculpture at the Met and the Whitney, the Nelson Atkins, the Detroit Institute, and the National Gallery. And each time her sculpture, crafted of burning strength and urgency, make us look deeply and closely to consider the possibilities that occupy a towering artist whose command of cedar and bronze derive from her hand and from her intellect. Ursula was 46 years old when Untitled Seven Mountains was acquired by the Metropolitan Museum. She was 48 when Umals, You Went and Died was purchased by Brooklyn. 49 when Five Mountains entered the Walker Art Center collection, and 65 when Wall Pocket was given with great prescience by Agnes Gund to the Museum of Modern Art. The art world may have first celebrated her significance a bit late, but this lag time only heightened the intensity and drive of an artist with a distinct creativity across a lifetime. When I was preparing an article on Ursula's work, she told me that she still liked to be called an emerging artist, that it gave her hope and a sense of possibility for the future. Whether we call Ursula emerging or established, her work is hugely influential to other artists who see in her practice how rigor and experimentation drive her, how her work can push skyward into the verticality of endless space or unfold like a procession across a site, how it can spill off the wall and infiltrate the viewer's space. Across her career, Ursula has carved and cut, smoothed and suffered her materials into a humanizing form of sculpture. I join the dean, staff, and board of New York Studio School in congratulating Ursula on this honor. She is my friend, and she is most of all a great and enduring artist.
Hi, I am so happy to be here this evening and to be here with so many of you. I have sometimes been asked why I make art. It is not a question I find easy to answer with any kind of clarity, but I will try to poke around some possibilities. Why do I make art? Mostly to survive, to ease my high anxiety, to numb myself with the labor and the focus of building my work. Objects or the process by which I concretize my ideas feels so good. Because invariably, especially with my most monstrous pieces, I run into intense anxiety, moments from which I have to unravel myself. Because there's a pleasure in it, because there's pain in it, because I endure a hefty load of self-doubt, because I have confidence in the possibility of seeing this work through, because I see life as being full of abominations, because life is full of marvels close to miracles, because I still don't get who I am, because I will never get who I am. Because my deepest admiration goes to those who have made art that has interested me. Because I want attention from those who make good art. Because I need to use both my body and my mind. The labor of my body is what keeps me awake and alive, what numbs me and offers a kind of veneer between me and the things in life which are painful to face. Because the visuals, that which I perceive through my eyes, are an extraordinarily important part of my life. Because I don't want to be doing anything else with my life. That the building of my artwork feels like the most consequential thing I could be doing with my time. Because I can run into a world of my making, both physically and mentally. Because I like working with a group of assistants who become a kind of family. Because I like the daily rhythm of going to my studio. Because it's a place to put my pain, my sadness. Because there's a constant hope inside of me that this process will heal me, my family, and the world. Because I like embroidering around my long ago Polish fantasies. Because I can reach into the future with my work. Because I constantly need to try to better understand the immense suffering and pain of my family that I never seem to be able to really understand. And also because I want to get answers to questions for which I know there are no answers. This is a really special school in terms of its history, and I know people who have gone through this school, and it beckons to every age, including the older people that really don't have a chance of getting into many of the art schools, can do so with this one, with the studio school. And there's a guy by the name of Graham Nixon who teaches drawing. And I've been with people that have had his tutelage in drawing that are just flipped out, and what they do in terms of the marathons. And so that they connect themselves with art in a way that seems very exciting and very deep. So I am so proud that I am being honored, and I'm so proud of the history of New York Studio School and how far it's gone. Thank you so much. I see. Okay. No, thank you so much, Sean. And people are going to see this? I have made many, many shovels. And I don't know why. I mean, I do know why. My parents were peasant farmers in Poland, and they were that for many, many generations. So this I consider a shovel. This one is of cedar, and this one is pounded copper. This is a piece that's not yet finished. And when you're seeing the blue tape on top and the tape above all the areas above that blue tape will have the lace, so that you will be able to see the sky through that top of that structure. And I think it's going to be pretty heavenly. So this is another piece that's huge and full of muscle and probably testosterone. It's really, really difficult to glue this. It's you know, it seems like whatever I do gets harder and harder for me, and then harder and harder for Ruben, who does all of the gluing. But he was able to figure out all of those little parts that fit together, that are glued together, and not miss any of them or not misplace any of them. So I'm so fortunate to have him. And I think that's it, no?
Hi, my name is Caroline Weibel, and I'm from Dallas, Texas. I am a first-year certificate student here at the New York Studio School.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Hill. I'm a first-year MFA student.
My name is Grace Carney. I'm a first-year MFA painting student.
Hi, my name is Yiting Zhao. Yiting, similar to eating, and I come from China. This is my first semester.
My name is Jamie Allen. I'm a post-grad student. I graduated in May, but wanted to do another semester for a little bit more closure of my whole experience at the school, and I would not have been able to do that without your help. Thank you so much for your generosity. This scholarship made this whole experience possible for me, so thank you very much.
This has been so far such an amazing experience for me that wouldn't have been possible without my scholarship. So I want to thank the donors for their generosity.
It's a wonderful feeling to not have that burden and to really put in everything into my work. And so I'm very grateful for the scholarship and for all the support I've received.
I would like to thank the Gerald L. Leonard Foundation for the scholarship that I've received. It means everything. Without it, I just don't see how my journey here at the New York Studio School would even be possible.
Never thought I would be able to come to New York for any reason, let alone for art school.
And I want to thank the donor for the scholarship that make my time in New York Studio School possible.
Thank you guys so much for coming tonight, and please be as generous as you're able to be when considering donating to our scholarships.
I'd like to thank the co-chairs, Cordy Ryman and Hubert Phipps, very fine artists and generous human beings, for their marvelous 2020 benefit support. Most of all, I'd like to thank our development director, Alex Williams, who has done a fantastic job with exceptional hard work and good humour and resilience at all times. Also, I'd like to thank our brilliant trustees, our staff, friends and artists who gave great art for auction, and of course our honorees and introducers. I hope you enjoyed tonight's event and you have expanded your list of friends, your art collection and your cocktail cabinet. Bravi tutti.